This is Hannibal here from the Hannibal TV on YouTube. And today I have a guest everyone around my age is going to remember, and probably about 10 or 15 years older as well from our younger years. We grew up watching him from the WWF days to the early WCW days, and he's done appearances here and there. Most recently, I believe he did something in AEW. And in my opinion, the best ever WCW announcer, Gary Michael Capetta.
Hey, that was good. That was good. We're gonna put you to work.
It seems like it might be too much of a stressful job for me. And don't you? Isn't there oftentimes? I know you were the top announcer a lot of times, but isn't there a lot of grunt work that goes along with being a ring announcer as well?
I never had grunt work. No, no. If you're talking about like Fall in the Ring and
Yeah.
yeah, no, no. I always appreciated what the guys did, and I knew that they were among the most important people because without those guys to the town on time and setting up the ring, a show, and if they didn't set the ring up properly, then the wrestlers would be in danger. So yeah, I always appreciated the ring crew. Um, Sometimes it used to annoy me a little bit. Every once in a while, you'd have a top talent, and of course, they needed coffee. They they'd say something to the ring crew, they'd go get it. But I didn't like the way that the guys were treated sometimes. They weren't appreciated, and yeah, I have to say that I always understood their role and their importance to the show.
Someone had a quick question. He was tuning in from Manchester, England. Did you ever ring announce there? I'm not sure if you did the WCW British tour.
I did. I did. It was we were in London. I'm not sure which tour that was, but we were in London, we were in Birmingham. When we were in London, two different well, I was actually there for three tours. The first time in London, we played the Olympia, an old place. And then, really cool, the next time we were there, we played Royal Albert Hall. And I loved that. That was that was great. And then we played Wembley Stadium, no, Wembley Arena. And that probably was the tour we were in Manchester. I remember a venue. Maybe at one time it was maybe a train station, and there was like a lot of glass that made up the walls. And at one end there was this huge clock. I think I got that right. Yes, so I did get to Manchester to answer the gentleman's question.
So I guess one of those tours would have been the tour of the infamous Sid and Arn Anderson incident there that took
Yes,
place.
yes.
Were you in that hotel that night?
Oh yes. My
What are
room,
your memories?
my room was across from Arn's room. But there's a backstory with all of these stories. There's always like a backstory. Um, we had come in from the States, and it was a rigorous schedule, and we had just done, I think, a pay-per-view, and they put us on a plane. We flew into the UK, and the day that we arrived at the UK, we had a show that night. And then they put us on a bus, and we went to I don't know, was that Aberdeen? I'm trying to remember where the fight took place. And when we went to the European tours, we were treated really well because the promoters were used to hosting rock groups. So we had two tour buses. one for the faces, one for the heels. And in the back of the bus, there was a huge cooler filled with beer. So by the time we got to the hotel, some of the
It
guys
took
were
place in
already
Blackburn, England, by the way.
okay.
Blackburn.
Blackburn. So by the time we got there, um, some of the guys, were feeling fine, and the hotel bar knew that these American wrestlers were on their way, and they knew that we were going to get there late, so they kept their bar open. So the fellas, some of the fellas, went down to went to the bar. They just threw their gear in their room and they went down to the bar, and that's where the the verbal confrontation happened between Sid and Arn. See, so there's a backstory. People are tired, people are liquored up, and it was like a perfect situation for tongues to flap and people to say things and people to overreact and so forth. I didn't go down to the bar. I went to my room because I was wiped out. And but I did hear in the hallway, I heard the commotion, and I didn't know what was going on. As it, what I found out later was Sid and Arn down at the bar got into an argument. Doug Dellinger, who was our head of security, was there. He sent the guys to their rooms, and Sid's room wasn't near our room, and Arn was right across the hall from me. So Sid went to his room, my understanding is, and he grabbed, I want to say, a chair, and he made his way around Arn's room. So how would he know where Arn's room is a question that a fan might have. And the answer is, we receive itinerary at the beginning of each tour. And it told us what rooms we were in. There was a list. So he grabbed a chair, my understanding is, and I have to say that because I wasn't with him. I didn't, I wasn't with Sid. And I'm trying to go to sleep, and all of a sudden I'm hearing boom, boom. And I'm looking at the wall because there was light coming in from through the window, like a street light. I'm seeing hanging shake. It's like boom, boom. And I'm saying, my first reaction was, oh no, the guys are playing. They're playing around. This isn't the time to do that. I want to go to sleep. And I went to the door and I went to open the door, and there was another pounding against my door. And I'm thinking to myself, that might not be a good idea. This doesn't sound like playing around. But yeah, so by the time I went out into the hall, it was it was all over. Because tell you the truth, I wasn't going to get in the middle of any kind of scuffle, and I was I just wanted to. I may be the world's most dangerous announcer, but I don't walk into danger knowingly. Um, so yeah, I mean that it was really unfortunate. Guys got cut up because my understanding is that, of course, Arn wanted to protect himself, so he came to the door with whatever the only thing I guess that he had that he felt that he had to protect himself, and it was I think it was scissors, and they fought over the scissors and cut each other, and yeah, it was unfortunate. Made
It was
headlines the next
unfortunate,
day.
but fortunate that neither one of them died because I understand from other people that I interviewed, they both came very close to death. So one of them would have died and one of them would have gone to jail.
Yeah, I know it made headlines in the local papers.
Yeah,
Uh,
if the internet had been around, I think, I don't know if that would have been swept under the rug so quick.
yeah, yeah, and and the tour went on. That's
Yeah.
the
Because
both guys. I believe, if my memory serves me correctly, yeah, both guys were they were in the hospital. I don't know for how long, and then sent back to the States.
Now I know Sid told me. I mean, I ended up becoming friends with him. I used him in my company a lot. He ended up being a really nice guy to me. And he told me he stopped drinking. He ended up becoming a marijuana guy. He said he doesn't need anything to excite him. A lot of I know Ric Flair really hated him, and that fight was kind of based on the whole feud that they had with Ric Flair and Arn, because Arn Anderson was one of Flair's guys. What was your relationship with Sid? Because I know that was kind of near the peak of Sid's career too, so he may have had an ego back then. I knew him later in his career.
Yeah,
Just from your perspective of Sid.
it was very surface. Hey, how you doing, Sid? And I'd get to the arena, and yeah, we had no like heavy discussion. I never made a practice of going to bars where the guys were hanging out. I just knew that I just tried to stay out of controversy. I liked what I was doing. I wanted to keep doing what I was doing. Um, I didn't have any issues with any of the wrestlers. No, we were. It was a surface relationship, but it was very cordial.
Yeah, I actually saw an Inside Edition video where they knew, I guess the wrestlers knew the cameras were there and they stripped David Penzer naked at a bar, knowing that the Inside Edition cameras were there as a joke. And of course, he took it with how Penzer's going to take it. But I'm like, that wouldn't go over so well today. But that's just me thinking you're making the right decision as the ring announcer. You're going to be a target.
It was.
Um,
I think it was one of the reasons for my longevity. I had a very good relationship with everybody. Um, I know that doesn't make for great sensational, like reporting, but um, yeah, I mean, and I found myself. That being said, I did, at times throughout my career, I found myself in, for instance, the Sid Arn fight. I just would find myself in the middle of situations, so that's where a lot of the stories that I had in my book, Body Slams, came from. We were also on a European tour the night that Mick Foley lost his ear. So there was nothing that I did you know, to uh, to cause any kind of controversy, but there I was, right in the middle. There was a night in early in my career in Philadelphia where I was Iron Mike Sharp because of him chasing me and the way that I flew out of the ring. It got knocked out, but there was nothing. I was just reacting to a situation. So yeah, but I stayed as non-controversial as I could.
here's a funny question, and I would have loved to have seen this because here's the greatest guy from WWE and the greatest from WCW. Did you and Howard Finkel ever have an announce off, like a rap off that you'd see on the streets?
No, but I knew Howard. Howard was a terrific guy. Very very loyal to WWF and the McMahons. Um, the last time I saw him was at a convention in New Jersey, and he came over. He would when I worked for WWE for 11 years. My first 11 years of announcing. So from 1974 to 1985. And not only did Howard do the ring announcing, but he also worked in the office. That was really his main thing. And so he would come to events where I was the assigned announcer, and he would be backstage just because of his office duties. Um, my, fa- my one of my favorite Howard stories. Well, it is my favorite Howard story. because I don't have many Howard stories. Um, I was with was it was either WCW or there was a time when Vern Gagne and Jim Crockett teamed up. What was it called? When they
Oh,
teamed up,
Power Team US, or sorry,
Pro
something.
Wrestling USA,
Yeah, Pro
maybe.
Wrestling USA. Yeah.
And so we had this was after I left WWE, and we had an event in Connecticut, in New Haven, Connecticut. So it's time for the show. I go out, I open the show. It was early on. It was either the first or the second match. And as the matches are going on, I'm sitting with my back to the railing. And so I'm watching, and all of a sudden, there's a tug on my jacket from behind, like someone sticking their hand through the railing and tugging my jacket. So I look around, and at first I didn't recognize who it was. This person had a dark raincoat, a baseball cap covering all of their hair, and sunglasses, dark glasses. And he's saying, "Hey, Gary, how are you? Good to." And I'm looking, and who is it but Pat Patterson? So Pat was sent by the WWE office to see what was going on at our show, like to spy on us or whatever. They bought tickets. So I said, "Oh, Howard," we chatted a little. I mean, Pat, and we chatted a little bit. And I said, "Are you here alone?" He said, "No," and he points up to the balcony, or maybe the center section up, and there's Howard, also with a cap on and dark glasses. That's my favorite Howard story.
That's funny. They came in disguises.
Yeah,
it, I guess that's only they don't want them to know that they care enough to watch, because it's not like they're going to get ejected from the building or anything like that.
but in the early days, um, and I carried this throughout my career to a fault and maybe too much. But when you worked for the opposition, I was always taught you didn't communicate with the opposing team. So once you left the promotion, like I never interacted with anyone that I worked with in WWF, because you never wanted to be accused of being a spy, a mole. We had a guy in WCW office, and people were convinced that he was sent by the WWF to screw things up in WCW. I don't know if that was true or not, but he did do some really wacky things that were not helpful to our promotion. But
Was
yeah, so
that Bill Watts by any chance?
oh, no, 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 it was, and I don't want to mention names because but it
There's a
was
lot of people that could fit that description that have been head of WCW.
no, no. Well, I didn't say he was head of WCW.
Oh, it
I
was
said
just agent or
he was an
booker.
office guy,
Okay.
and he booked arenas. That was his job. And he was the assistant arena booker. I guess I'm identifying him, but I'm not saying the name, in WWF. And he came down and just, like he would book us in like San Antonio on Easter. It's the most Catholic city in the country. He would book us in like in Tennessee on a Wednesday night, which is church night. Like all kinds of things that just they just seemed like, well, if you knew what you were doing, you wouldn't, that's not something you would do. You should know better than that. So it always seemed like our success was being undermined by that kind of thing. There was one time in Canada. This has nothing to do with the arena booker. At least I don't think it does. Um, it was St. John's. We were booked at the Lord.
Newfoundland or New Brunswick? Because there's two St. John. I'll look it
Okay.
up.
We were
WCW St. John's.
we were booked at the Lord Beaverbrook hockey rink. So wherever the Lord Beaverbrook hockey rink is, and so I get to the arena,
Good name
and
for a wrestler, Lord Beaverbrook.
well, there was Little Beaver,
Yeah, there was.
yeah, and there are a lot of people milling around the outside of the arena, and there were some police cars, and so I'm saying, yeah, like I don't know what's going on here, and as it turns out, somebody. I don't know. Are you into hockey? Do you know about these? Somebody there they
It
need a
says canceled due to ammonia outbreak at the venue.
right. Well, it was
May
yeah,
7th, 1990.
somebody released the valve and it filled the arena with ammonia and you couldn't walk in because you would gag. And yeah, so that event was canceled.
Yeah. That could have even been one of the local promotions at the time because there was still at least one or two like regular territories, I think, running. Like Rene Dupree's father was still running then. And I think a company that JJ Dillon was affiliated with that was competition to Dupree,
Mm.
I think they may have been, they would have, I don't think WWE would have been smart enough to do that.
Well, it
But I
had to be
think,
someone like with a
yeah.
local connection, someone who knew someone that worked in the arena.
So that would have been around the same time that WCW did the house show at Skydome, right? Because that was was that in 1990 or 91? Because you guys also,
That
I
wasn't.
heard,
There
yeah.
was only 3 dates on that Canadian
Okay,
uh,
maybe it wasn't that
tour.
tour.
I think Halifax was the last night, and there was a smaller town. I want to say, don't ask me how I would remember this, but like northeast of St. John's. And I think when we did the Sky Dome, it was probably off a Detroit date.
Now, did they have the Sky Dome blocked off, or was it just like? Because I heard there was 8,000. So was it just like, hey, here's 8,000 people in a 68,000 building, or
Yeah, yeah,
did it actually look good?
they had one end blocked off, so it didn't look that bad.
I heard that WWE actually did house shows at the Pontiac Silverdome too, with much smaller crowds over the years.
Hmm.
Okay, the Toronto show was June, or there was a couple of them. I guess you guys were at an outdoor arena, June 27th, 1990, which was your first one. Then you came back the next year to the Sky Dome. And Halifax was May 5th. Yeah, so these are all very rare shows because they only came once and they never came again. During the even during the dying days of WCW, they would have done well. Even I'm amazed to see June 26, 1990. You went to Niagara Falls, Ontario,
Yes,
and Brantford, Ontario. These are pretty small towns overall, which is amazing that you didn't go to like Winnipeg, but you'll go to Brantford, Ontario. It's
and
bizarre.
maybe that all had to do with the arena booker.
There you go. Yeah, because it's like you're not going to go to Ottawa, the capital city, or Montreal, like one of the greatest wrestling cities historically, but let's go to Brantford.
Yeah,
And this let's literally go out to Lord Beaverbrook Arena in the middle of nowhere. Let's drive everyone out there to maximum get 2,000 people to pay in Canadian, where
they
they're
had
going to sabotage us.
they had a nice mall there. I remember spending the day checking out the shopping mall.
You don't seem like the type of were you like recognized a lot? Did you have the male and female fans like wanting your autograph and stuff and because you were such a recognizable face?
Um, yes, it depended. I remember in 1976 was the first time that I did any kind of television, and it was WWF TV. It was their A show. Now, this show in the area where I lived was seen on Saturday night at midnight on WOR TV. And I, I'm the ring announcer, so the ring announcers were not featured for sure back then. And for the all of the years, I think 8 of my 11 years, I did the TV announcing. They never mentioned my name. The only time my name was mentioned was we had to open the show. The State Athletic Commission required that we announce the names of the commissioners, the doctor, the timekeeper, and I'm your ring announcer, Gary Michael Capetta. After that, nothing. And after the show, 2 shows aired, it was like 2 weeks. Um, I started getting recognized, and it was amazing to me because what I was seen on camera maybe for the entire hour, I don't know, 26 seconds. I wasn't featured in any way. Um, but people are very observant, and it freaked me out. It certainly I didn't like it, but that is what happened. And but ordinarily, like in a regular day, that I remember I was at a convenience store once. It was oh well, I don't. We have Wawas in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and they have them here in Florida also. And all I was doing was checking out ice cream. I was trying to figure out what flavor ice cream I wanted to buy. And some guy comes over and he starts yelling at me. Like, why did you? And I don't remember what his issue was. It wasn't personal. He didn't like something about the promotion. And it's like, hey man, just like leave me alone. Just like go away. So that happens sometimes. It uh, more often than not, like if we were in airports, it would be likely because you've got a group of oversized guys, and they draw attention. And at the time, to have tattoos and to have long hair and beard was not typical. So yeah, so then you were drawing attention to yourself. Um, but yeah, it was hit and miss. Once in a while, I'd get it. I would get recognized, and sometimes not.
Somebody says you were early 90s WCW. In Canada, we only got the Power Hour and it played like 3 times a week on TSN. So you were the announcer for that most of the time.
Mm.
So
That was a show that
you
they put
must
together. They used clips from other shows and put those together. Um,
yeah.
I, at the time, now it's interesting because David Penzer announced at the height of WCW popularity. We actually announced. He and I were talking about this once. Um, we announced the same length of time. We each announced 6 years. I announced from '89 to '95, and he announced from '95 to the end. Um, yeah, so and I would do the A syndicated show, Championship Wrestling, and I would do the Saturday night TBS show. Um, and I also did other things that people aren't like wouldn't know. Because I have a facility with the Spanish language, I did the voiceover the commentary for KCAL in Los Angeles. The only way they would take our show is if we provided them a Spanish version. So I would go into the studio once a week and in voiceover, they would erase whoever was announcing that, whether it be Tony Schiavone or Jim Ross, and lay my voice in Spanish over them on that track. I did a bunch of different things. I hosted the event center for a while, and those were really long days, because that was like all market specific. Tonight in Minneapolis, and and they wanted me to do it in my ring announce voice. My ring announce voice is, it's like, it's bold, and it's not made to do that for 10 hours at a time. I had that same situation when I voiced over the video game that I did, because it's, I'm going to use my ring. Those were ring announcements, and I'm going to use my ring announce voice, but your throat isn't made to boom like that, like I said, for 8-10 hours consecutively. So we would have to take a rest. I remember one day we just stopped early and came back the next morning and finished up.
I found out some more information on that Sky Dome show, and I think you might be right. There was actually less than 6,000 in there. 3,850 paid. They only had Ric Flair in an in-ring interview, Flash Funk and Marcus Alexander Bagwell against the Godwins in the main events in the Sky Dome. That's not the best booked show, I guess.
No, I think you're right.
But it's strange that Flair wouldn't have wanted to wrestle in there, but maybe it had something to do with his contract coming back from WWF. But
I don't know,
because those buildings cost a fortune to run, and to only have 3,800 at 1993 ticket prices, amazing. Somebody's asking, how was Harley Race and Vader to work with? Any stories about them?
Harley was really cool. I liked. You didn't want to get on Harley's bad side. Once in a while, he could stir things up. He used to carry around a stun gun, and I never received anything from the stun gun, but he would find someone who, like a defenseless kind of guy, and he would just like have a good time, just like sticking him with his stun gun. But he was a really nice guy. I remember him hosting. We were in Kansas City, and the day of the Kansas City show, Harley lived in the suburbs, and he would have us over for barbecue. He loved to barbecue. Steve Austin, Rick Rude, whoever was on the card that night. Yeah, Harley was really cool. Vader was hot and cold. He could have his temperamental days. Never directed at me, but under stress and strain. I remember like in the during the European tours. It's interesting because when we tour in North America, everybody, you team up with whoever you're close to, and you're in the same car. I was fortunate as part of my deal, because I knew that I could never do that. I knew that I would go crazy. So part of my deal was the company paid for my car, and I traveled alone. And if I wanted, company, I would ask one of the guys if they wanted to travel with me, and I would extend my benefits to them because they would also pay for my hotel, my food. Everybody's airfare was paid for by the company. Um, so you take these guys who are used to hanging out with their friends because in order for them to be reimbursed for their automobile, you had to have three guys, three WCW wrestlers or referees in the car. And so, obviously, you're, like I said, you're going to team up with your friends. You take this group of all heels and all faces and you put them on buses and you're in the same environment constantly for a couple of weeks or a week and a half, and you're going to get frayed nerves, you know? Um, so, in an environment like that, Vader didn't do too well. Um, but I just used to duck down and try to stay below the fray of the crossfire of whoever was pissing whoever off that week. Um, yeah,
Were you
so
announcing the match where he allegedly broke the person's back, or that may have been exaggerated but severely hurt the person's back?
I'm not aware of. I wasn't even aware that that happened. So
Okay.
it could be that I announced the match but wasn't aware.
What did you think about how the Steiners would get really rough with some of the enhancement talent, which they were notorious for?
Um, I didn't think too much about it. It's I just look at it as people doing their job and their persona, their character was legit, legit face badasses. You talk about, I mean, I think I posted it on my Facebook page we were talking about Sid earlier, like the way, oof, there was this a match, Sid just destroyed his enhancement guy, his job guy. It was brutal, and I just think that the
Sid
guy,
said there was a competition between him, the Steiners, and Vader of who could beat up the enhancement talent. Whereas I don't know if Sid was being legitimate there or not, but that's what he
I don't
said.
know. When I watched the match, I think when Sid hit the guy, I think the guy came up too soon, and I think that's why he just really beat the hell out of him. It was brutal. He clotheslined the guy, and the guy is like flipped in the air before he hit the mat. It was rough.
At the same time, I like seeing, like now when they have those, it's very, very choreographed and you can tell they've been practiced. I like seeing them more called on the fly where when mistakes happen, they'll just do that.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much that is done today in some promotions more than others, where it's come on, give me a break. Like you're not even trying to portray any kind of realism. So it doesn't matter that the fans are smart. I've been to shows, within the last few years where what's going on in the ring captures the people, not because of a senseless bump or not be, I mean, guys that are actually wrestling. Um, just because the people aren't shouting on and standing on their chairs, it doesn't mean that they're not engrossed in what's going on. Sometimes to study what's happening, you're not screaming, but you're following along. Um, and I'm not talking about guys, laying there with a rest hold for 10 minutes, but you can grapple and grab the people in, and draw them in. But I think that maybe it's insecurity, But if there are too many wrestlers today, if they don't get an immediate reaction, then they think they're not doing their job, or they're not being entertaining, or the people don't care. And so that's why I think you have high spot after high spot after high spot. And just like so much of it, it doesn't make any sense. But that doesn't seem to be the goal. So, um,
And I keep hearing, oh, this AAA stuff is just great. You got to watch it. I tried to watch it, but I see people no selling Canadian destroyers to the outside through a table to the concrete, and that's not even the finish. Then they do a
yeah,
power bomb off the top rope through a table. That's not the finish. It's like, I'm sorry, these guys aren't even big. I just don't believe it anymore. I'm out of here. Like, there's one thing that we know it's phony, but there's another. I have to be able to suspend my disbelief to a certain level. But
yeah, absolutely. I'm not sure um, that I think that there are wrestlers today that if you sat them down and you asked them what their goal is in a match, I'm not sure that they would have a good answer for you. And not only should a match build in a certain way, but an entire event should build in a certain way. I don't understand events where like a main event is the first match. I don't get that. I mean, you should be
yeah,
building anticipation, to what you tuned in to see. WWE does that to separate the ladies version from the men's version. Where they'll start with an elimination chamber match. Well, the magic is gone now. It's yeah. I don't understand.
yeah. And I've said this a million times in my news, but why AEW? At least supposedly they're moving Ring of Honor to a studio now with a very tiny crowd and free tickets. That's good because often, but here's the thing, it just explains what you did. They tape the A show first, the Dynamite, then they beg you to stay for Collision. Then they beg you to stay for Ring of Honor. Nobody wants to be there by the time Ring of Honor is there. Why don't you do it the opposite? Like you're putting everything out before and then you're working down. It doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know why they do that.
Well, I think the theory is that they want the people hottest for their biggest show, and that's why they do it in that order.
But then the crowd just trickles out,
Yeah.
unfortunately. But what I found weird, they gave me press tickets to a show a couple years ago in Ottawa, where 8 wrestlers on the show, including Moxley, Jericho, and Soraya and FTR, were advertised, and Christian. They were advertised for being there, and they weren't there.
Oh.
But then I'm sitting there. The first part of the show is like 15 minutes of like just highlight. Everyone's just watching the TV. And I'm sitting there thinking, why aren't you putting like Ring of Honor matches now? Because this is just highlights and stuff. Because the whole time they're begging people to stay after to watch Ring of Honor. And I'm like, there was like 15 minutes of dead air you guys could have used. But whatever, they're having fun doing things the way that they want to do it. How was your experience with your appearance in AEW?
It was fine. I the thing that I was focused on was that it's been 6 years now, believe it or not, but it put me in the new decade of of TV uh, of TV work, right? Because now GMC has been on TV in the 2000s. I can go to sleep for I figured I can go to sleep now for 9 years, and then when I'm 104, come back. It was okay. I didn't. I originally, was very tentative about doing it, because when they didn't contact me, now the show was live, I think it was from Kansas City on a Wednesday, and they didn't contact me until the Sunday, so like 4 days before. And the way it was presented to me was they wanted me to host a segment because the weekend after the Dynamite, after that Wednesday, was a premium live event. And so this was to build up that main event, which was Jericho versus Moxley. And I said, I really, like, you have people there that would do that much better than I could do that. Like, I'm not a host. I'm a ring announcer. I'm not a host of a segment. I mean, I can do it, but I don't really. I'm not
For the
confident.
money they pay, you should have just said yes, because they pay ridiculous.
So they do pay. Yeah, they. So then they explained it to me a little bit more, where they wanted me to oversee the weigh-ins and introduce the one guy, introduce the other guy. So now they're in the ring. Then you introduce them, and then each one goes to the scale. All right, well, that's what I do, right? I introduce wrestlers. Um, and I think it was Jericho's idea to bring me in. To tell you the truth, I think Justin Roberts could have done just as well. But it was fine. I hadn't seen Tony Schiavone or Jim Ross in a while, so it was good to see those guys. I met Taz, and he was a gentleman. Um, they had an announcers room. I'm not sure why Dustin Rhodes was getting dressed in there, but it was great to see Dustin. Uh,
He's truly blessed. He is truly blessed. Some of the one good thing I'll say about AEW is where would Dustin Rhodes be really like, or where would Jake the Snake be? I don't know what Jake does for AEW, but supposedly he makes 600 grand a year.
you
Jim
saw that.
Ross is the highest paid announcer in wrestling for hardly ever appearing. Tony Schiavone has a job again. There's so many people now that kind of deserve pay that wouldn't be in wrestling or would only be on the indies if AEW didn't exist. For all the people that don't deserve contracts that have them.
Yeah,
So
I
it's
know.
too bad. I hope they use you again sometime. I'll
I
put
don't
this
know.
clip up.
I don't know how they make their decisions, or what causes them to do what they do, but I guess it works for them. And that's not to say that I haven't seen you know wrestling on an AEW program that I've enjoyed. I'm not beating on them, at all. They're they're fine. It's not necessarily something that I feel the need to tune into every week, but neither is the WWE right now.
Right. And I'm the same. It's changed. Sadly, wrestling is not wrestling anymore. It's not what I grew up watching, and it's not what you grew up watching. So it's just we
Yeah,
have to accept it.
but Devin, that's okay. It shouldn't be the same as it was when you were growing up or when I was growing up. I mean, you can take any art like country music. Country music isn't the same as it was, you know, during the Buck Owens days. It has evolved. Um, it's just that there's a core that needs to remain in the art form, whether it be a style of music or whether it be a sporting event. There's a core that needs to remain in there to continue to be called pro wrestling. I mean, if we get to a point where it doesn't matter who wins and who loses, and that we can figure that out by some things that are done in the ring that are really foolish. It's like, why did you do that? Like, what makes you think that by doing that move that you're more likely to win the match? The whole idea is to win the match. And anything that you do in the ring that doesn't contribute to winning the match, even if it goes badly for you, even if it backfires, if it doesn't contribute to winning a match, it shouldn't be done. Because what's the point? So it needs to be, but there are different ways to do that. And those ways from back when I was a kid and then decades later when you were a kid, like they're different. They can be different, but just so however the evolution, wherever the evolution takes us, that the goal is the same. I tell you, there are different ways to send messages, and the referee is one of the. This really this it saddens me that the referees aren't used as referees. They're used as counting one, two, three, and that's about all they do because nobody listens to them. They don't enforce much of anything. And it's important to have an enforcer in the match. I mean, you have to have rules to break. If you don't have a rule, it can't be broken. And if you don't have a rule breaker, then you don't have a heel. So, I mean, even things like years ago, if folks watch like some of the like the old stuff, before the match, the wrestlers used to come to the center with the referee in the middle, and he would check them to be sure that they didn't have like brass knuckles hidden or a foreign object is what we would call them. And today they wear jewelry. I mean, why not take the necklace off and just choke the guy with it?
Yeah, I noticed that too. They've completely disregarded the jewelry rule now. And that would be actually a disadvantage in a fight to have jewelry on.
No.
Like in UFC, you don't see them trying to keep jewelry on. In a street fight, people will normally, like I've been a bouncer, if people are about to get it on, they'll give it to their girlfriend or their friend before they fight because someone's going to grab it.
Well, here's what I'm afraid of. What I'm afraid of is a guy with a chain around his neck. He's slung into the ropes, and when he comes back, that chain is caught on his opponent's whatever. It's like decapitation isn't supposed to be part of pro wrestling.
Someone had a question here. You brought up Justin Roberts a few times. Somebody was asking what happened. Oh, here it is. Why did Gary have a falling out with Justin Roberts on his Body Slam book tour? I've never heard about this. What happened here?
uh, so so my book comes out, and I'm going to go on the road, and I'm going to promote my book. And I booked myself into county and state fairs in the Midwest for the entire summer. And that it was a really bad idea. The whole idea was wrestling began. Well, this isn't totally true, but the idea was wrestling began in the fairs, like beat the champ kind of thing, in carnivals. And so I was going to I was going to the fairs because that was the theory. And it was a really bad idea because people don't go to fairs and carnivals and buy books. And they definitely don't want to buy a book and carry it around a fair. So, but that's okay. I before long, after a couple of weeks, I realized that I made a mistake. And before, like a few weeks before, I was contacted by Justin, and he was a very young independent announcer, and he asked if I needed help on the tour. And because I had a pop-up tent, I was, selling all kinds of merch and in addition to my book. So, there was work every day, and these were long days. So I said, sure. And I flew him out to New Jersey, where I was living at the time. We worked the Meadowlands Fair. Then we hit the road. And um, and then, like I said, it didn't take long for me to realize, I'm not selling any books. Like this isn't working too well. But what I can do is I can do a lot of local media. So if the people aren't coming out to see me, I can come to them through media. And I learned that in secondary and tertiary markets that, they have Good Morning Cleveland, that kind of program in that size city. And they're starving for guests. If you're in New York or Chicago or LA, you get the top tier guests. So it wasn't difficult for me to book myself on like morning radio shows, morning TV shows, and that's what I would do. That was going to save the tour. That was the hope, and it worked. It worked because my Amazon sales went through the roof once I started doing that. So there came to be one night we were at a fair. There was a wrestling show that night. I had booked on an interview. Now, I had Justin. I was paying him. I was paying for his hotel, and I needed to go do this interview, and I needed for him to man the tent, to while I was interviewing, and he decided it was to him to be the ring announcer for this indie wrestling show. And I said to him, like, I need your help here. Like, I'm paying you. You're working for me. And he wouldn't hear it. He wouldn't listen, and he went and did his show. And when he came back, I told him to go home. And I told him before he went to do the show, like, if you do this, then we're going to part ways. And that's what happened.
That's unfortunate. Now I think he's one of the lucky ones that has the AEW announcing job. But
Yeah, it's a good fit. He loves what he's doing there. He's a good job for them, and it seems to work. And Tony Khan likes his work a lot.
he seems like the type of person that would get along well with Tony Khan. Not saying anything other than that's what I get out of it. Jacob's wondering, how was your relationship with Pat Patterson? You mentioned earlier that he was happy to see you when he was spying at the NWA show.
Pat was he was fine. Let me see well, to start at the beginning, before Pat became instrumental in the booking of WWF, he was brought in to wrestle just like any other wrestler. He was living in San Francisco, and his boyfriend was Louis Dondero, and Louis was a hairstylist in San Francisco. And just like you, it would just make sense that Pat came out ahead to the East Coast to check things out. He didn't know how long he would be spending in the WWF. So Louis stayed behind in San Francisco because he had a business. And if things didn't work out for Pat, he would still have his business. Pat would have gone home and worked in another territory. But obviously things worked out, and Louis came out. And early on, Pat and Louie purchased a condo, one county north of where I was living in New Jersey, and it was right on the water across from New York City. So they had a great view of the skyline. And every once in a while, we would get together and socialize and chat. And but once again, I didn't. That was unusual. That really was unusual for me. But in the context of a wrestling event, I didn't. Well, at that time, I was still teaching school, so I would just after a show, I would go home and get some sleep because I needed to get up first thing in the morning. So we didn't have that kind of social time. But I did go, to his condo. He wanted me to see it, and then shortly thereafter, they sold the condo. And when he saw that he was be working in the office with Finney, he moved to Connecticut. So that was my, in a nutshell, my relationship with Mr. Patterson. I didn't realize we would have live fan questions. This is really cool. This is very unusual. This doesn't usually happen with any interviews that I do.
Sorry, I
Wow.
got kicked off there for a second. There's a fan on here as we wind it down.
Did you not out? Like, did you go to sleep or something?
No, the browser closed.
Oh. I want to know, like, tell me what mean things people are saying. It's like, oh my God, I didn't realize he's still alive. Or,
Oh no, somebody says they're happy they're getting to see this live.
oh,
Somebody
geez,
says
he got fat. Or, oh my God, he's losing his.
no. Can you shed any light on Tom Zink?
No.
Something straight. I don't think you were going to be one to hang out with Tom Zink, but like the weird way that he left WWE to go to WCW, then vanished,
No.
and then passed away.
He was with WWE before WCW? He was with
Yeah,
AWA, wasn't he?
I think he was, but then he was a Can-Am connection with Rick Martel. Then he disappeared on Rick Martel, and then they
Ooh.
put Martel with Santana. Then he did the same thing to WCW because he was getting good pushes in both places. Obviously, you don't know because you don't even remember. But
Yeah, no,
I
I
mean,
don't.
that guy was getting all the girls. I don't think he was hanging around with the ring announcer
Oh, come
after
on.
hours.
You might be
Someone
surprised. You
said,
just might be surprised there, Devin.
"Oh, I'm sure that there's a lot of wrestlers that like to talk wrestling and stuff."
There are those that like the intellectual type, the deep ones.
Gary says you're an amazing announcer. Someone
I want
says
to hear the negative comments.
I don't think you've had a negative one yet. Gary and
I want to get into a
Joe
fight with somebody.
McHugh's the announcer of our youth. I don't know who Joe McHugh is.
Oh, Joe McHugh. He was a WWF announcer, ring announcer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Someone tipped us 90.99 pounds. Hey, every bit helps. Thank you, Paul.
Doesn't,
I'm
doesn't
sure,
don't any of you fans want to get into a fight? Come on, let's get into an argument.
someone says, oh yeah, someone says, did you ever think of gimmiting the flower on your lapel to ward off Jimmy Snuka?
Wow, you got some old timers out there.
Could you shed light on that? I don't recognize that.
Yeah, I would often, well, when I was with WWF, and then I got away from it a little bit, but I would wear a carnation boot there all the time. And when I was with WWF, it was a real carnation. Later on, don't tell anyone, but they were silk. But
Okay.
in the early days, they were real, and we did 3 1-hour weekly TV shows in one night. And Jimmy Snuka, who was managed by Captain Lou Albano, came in for his first match for the first hour, and he came up to me as I'm announcing, and he snatched the carnation boutonniere from my jacket. He put it in his mouth and started chewing on it until it turned into some kind of a thick, milky substance. And then he spit it in my face. The the second hour that he was on, he came over. I would change. We would have like a 10-minute intermission between each hour, and it would just enough time for me to change my jacket and my tie. So I was wearing a long tie, and he decided he liked that, and he pushed me against the ropes, and he took off my tie and gave it to Albano. The last hour, and he was the last match of the third hour. I guess he liked my pants because he went and he grabbed at my belt and he started to undo my belt. And I stepped through the bottom ropes to get out of the way of this maniac. And I fell back and my leg was caught in the rope and I was hanging upside down. And that's how we went off the air. I think that's what the gentleman is referring to.
Interesting. Gary says he joined you and Abdullah the Butcher for dinner at Applebee's in Jackson, North Carolina, after a show at camp. I'll let you pronounce that if you can see it.
Lejeune?
Lejeune. I'm a former North Carolina Indian announcer, and I'm guessing he paid if Abdullah went out to dinner with you. But do you have any recollection of this guy?
No, but I remember the night. It was oh boy. I I may be putting 2 nights into one, but both of what I'm going to tell you happened. Um, Abby was coming off of a Japanese tour, and he had a lot of cash on it. And so we're backstage. I don't know whether it was before the show or during intermission. And he reaches down and he takes this huge roll of bills. Told me there's $10,000, and it had an elastic band around it. And he asked me to hold it for him while he wrestled because he didn't want to leave it in the locker room. Now, a quick thinking, intelligent human being would have said, no, that's okay. I'd rather not. But he caught me off guard. So I said, sure. So I put it in my pocket. And I guess it was kind of smart on his part, because I was in the middle all the time and people were looking at me all the time. I wasn't going to take off. I had no, if I wanted to steal anything, I had, no way to hide it. So I announced the rest of that half of the show with a big lump in my pocket. And I thought later, boy, Gary, that was foolish. Because when you gave it back to him, who's to say that he would say, hey, I'm missing $500? And then what? Like, how do you prove that you didn't do something? But that wasn't the case.
Yeah.
He took it back. But before the show, he must have asked me at the airport if he could have a ride. I guess that's what it was. Remember, I told you I traveled alone. So I said, sure. So we pull up to the hotel where I had made a reservation for myself. I didn't know I was going to be spending any time with Abby that night. And so I'm getting out, and he's not moving. So
You had to push
like,
him out, let me guess.
so I'm no, I know that I'm going to be driving into the show. He has no way to get around, but you need to like go in and register. And he says, no, 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 maybe later. Now, if he was expecting me to say, all right, Ab, you can come into my room, he had really he was way off base because that wasn't going to happen. So okay. So I go in and I register and I go back out. We take off we go to the show. If this gentleman says we went to an Applebee's afterwards, then we went to an Applebee's. And so I said to him, Ab, you never got a hotel room. And he said, yeah, 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 yeah. He said, I know. He said, I want you to take me to, and I forget the name, and he may have directed me to it. I don't remember. This was before GPS. So I don't know. Or he may have said, here, just drive down that road, and he spotted a place. I don't know. But he spotted he spotted a pretty depraved looking, one of those places where like the windows are taken out and there's wood like that's boarded and a lot of lights flashing from the inside and pounding music. And so he said, yeah, I want to go here. I said, okay. I said, but I'm tired. I'm going. So I'm because he wanted me to go in with him. I said, no, I could care less what's going on in there. I don't want to know. Like, I don't want to come back here in 3 months to be a to be a witness, of
Yeah.
whatever's going to happen in there. I don't want to like go into
That'll
court.
kill your payday from the night having to fly back on your own dime to
Oh,
testify.
it would kill it would kill my good guy reputation. Are you kidding? So I left him there. I dropped him off, and I went back to the hotel, and I figured he's a big boy. He can figure out, what he's going to do. And sure enough, I don't know what he did. I don't know how he spent the rest of the night, but not that there were that many hours left. But yeah, I mean, he was at the airport the next morning, and that's my memory of
The weirdest thing he ever did to one of my friends that was driving him around for a show I was running. My friend took him to a strip club and he went to pay the waitress, and Abdullah said, "Your money is no good here." And he took my friend's cash and he ripped it up, and then he gave the waitress his credit card. And my friend's like, "What the hell? You just ripped up my money."
you know
Like, what the hell was that?
that's not my favorite Abdullah story. I'll tell you my favorite Abdullah story. Do we have time?
Yeah, go ahead. Sure.
Okay. So we're on a flight, and and Kevin Sullivan and Nancy and Kevin's kids are on the flight, and Abby is sitting in the aisle seat. Kevin's son is sitting next to him, and I think the daughter is sitting at the window, and I'm sitting across the aisle on the aisle seat. And and Abby says to Kevin's son, "Hey, you want to play a game?" And the kid says, "What kind of game?" "Oh." And Abby reaches down and he takes out a deck of cards. He said, "We played like gin rummy." So the kid said, "Okay." So Abby starts shuffling the cards. They put the drop down tables down. He starts shuffling the cards, and as if it was all of a sudden he just thought of something. He says to the kid, "You want to play for something?" And the kid said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, you want to bet?" Well, the kid said, I don't have like much money. Well, let's see what you have. So the kid takes his money out and he shows Abby, and they play, and they play for part of the money, and Abby wins, and he takes the money. So Abby says, "You want to play again? Maybe you can win your money back." The kid said, uh, "Okay, I'll play again." So they play a gin rummy game again. Abby wins, and he takes the rest of the kids' money. And then he starts shuffling. He's not done yet. And so Abby says, "Do you want to play again?" And the kid said, "I don't have any more money." And Abby says to him, "That's a really nice watch you're wearing." So the kid said, "Yeah, but," he said, "Well," he said, "if if you lose, I get the watch, but if you win, you keep the watch and all of your money come back." So the kid said, "Okay." So they play another hand, and Abby wins. And Abby now has all the kids' money and the watch. And we're landing. We're arriving at our destination. As soon as we land, and as soon as the flight attendants tell us, it's okay, you can get up, Kevin's son jumps up and runs down the aisle toward the pilot, toward the front of the plane. And people are in his way, and he's like impatient. He wants to get out of there. And I'm saying to myself, I like where's he going? So he's running and he's running, and I'm not that far behind him. And as soon as he gets to the concourse, the kid stops and he looks and he spots a cop, and he runs over to the police officer and he yells at the top of his lungs, "There's a big fat black guy who just stole my watch." It was really funny. Now Abby was
That
not
is
going to keep
funny.
his money. Abby was going to give everything back to him, but he didn't expect that this kid was going to
Kevin
throw Abby.
probably put him up to that, knowing Kevin.
That I don't.
That sounds like Kevin's words. There's a couple quick fan questions here that are kind of good. What did you think of Eric Bischoff? This guy's trying to put words into your mouth. And do you hate anyone in the wrestling business? You seem like you've had a pretty good relationship with most.
Yeah, I don't. I don't hate anybody. Um, yeah, Eric was. I think he didn't value my role, and I don't think it was personal. He just didn't. He didn't appreciate my work, and therefore when he took over, he didn't want to continue to compensate me the way that I had been compensated. So yeah, so that's and that's why I left WCW. Um, that's about that's about all. Yeah.
Did Bischoff change? Because I just bought the rights to a Jesse Ventura interview, and he said that he felt like Bischoff worked him to get his vote of confidence to the powers that be, that yes, Bischoff would be a good guy. And then that same Eric Bischoff gave him the boot shortly after because of the heat with him and Hogan.
Yeah.
Um,
Um, you know, the guy that I knew, now we're talking a lot of years ago. Um, just not somebody that I would hang out with, not someone that I would trust. And hopefully he's matured, and he's done well for himself. But yeah, like I said, he just didn't value my contribution to the promotion.
Spike Fast Racing says, and this is related to that other question, what did you think when they kept bringing Michael Buffer in to take your spot for the pay-per-view announcing?
No problem. It didn't change. Then I didn't. There was one less match that I announced. It didn't change my deal. It didn't affect me really. Michael was a nice guy. He was, no problem with that. Yeah. I mean, look how successful he was. So you have to, for what we do as announcers, he really capitalized on the exposure that he received. First in boxing and then less so in wrestling. Yeah, good for him.
Was yours a guaranteed contract where you're paid the same no matter how little or how much you announce?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I had a guaranteed contract, and then I was paid extra for extra things that I did, like the voiceover in Spanish, like hosting the event center. So you put one on top of the other. Yeah, it was, and then like I said, they paid all of my expenses. So your expenses could dig like 35% into your income. And mine was all gravy. So um, yeah, no complaint here. They treated me well. And when I thought that that wasn't going to continue, that's when I left.
This question has come up a few times tonight because he's getting the biggest push in WWE right now. What are your thoughts on Danhausen?
Um, I don't know a whole lot about Danhausen, and I don't know what is he going to wrestle there?
From what I understand, he might wrestle here and there, but it's mostly going to be somebody used to promote merchandise and do backstage segments.
Yeah, I guess it just depends on what they do with him. I understand the appeal. I understand. I understand that, but we putting it in the context of wrestling. I'd have to. I don't know what they're going to do with him. I don't think AEW did much of anything with him.
No, I think someone counted in 3 years he had 9 matches or 9 appearances. So these people make. I would like someone to do like a graph of like how much people get per match, like Danhausen. If he's making 260 a year for 3 years, what does that equal if it's 9 matches? Like,
Yeah,
because that girl, I don't know if the former NWA women's champion there that was in that women's wrestling movie Queen of the Ring. She's only had like 6 matches, and they didn't even do anything off that movie. I think the Von Erichs, they signed Kevin Von Erich back in last July. And I'm thinking, okay, now they're going to start using the Von Erichs more. They haven't used them like one time
yeah.
since last July. It's like, no, he's just an official paid member of the roster now. So.
Just to get back to the question about Danhausen,
Yeah.
I can't answer the question because I don't know what they're going to do with him. I don't know how he's going to be used. So I may really like it, and I may gag. I don't know.
I don't know if you could do the voice, but in the right makeup, you could play his dad pretty well.
Maybe his grandfather.
Oh, yeah, I don't know how old he is. Okay, here's a quick one. This guy loved the video game Showdown Legends of Wrestling that you're in.
I see it. I see the
Are
question.
you still getting residuals for that? He wants to know because it's his favorite game or something.
No.
And last question. He saw you, Pizza 27 saw you a few times in Osbury Park, New Jersey. Do you have any memories of that famous convention hall?
Oh, absolutely. Now we need another hour.
Oh, really? That I know that was one of Bam Bam's favorite places to work, and Bruce Springsteen played there, right?
Yes, Asbury Park Convention Hall was the very first place that I was brought to see a wrestling match live. And it's very near and dear to my heart. I announced there, so I would go, I would be brought because I was only like 12, 13 years old. Maybe mom or whoever would, drop me and a cousin off to, to go see the show. Then, when I began driving, I would go there as a fan. And it's a great venue, the layout and for wrestling. Then I announced there in WWF. I announced there with NWA. I announced there with Ring of Honor. So it was really it's a special place for me because it's like I said, the very first time I saw wrestling. It like physically it it's had its glory days, and then through the years it's deteriorated, like the physical venue. And then I know they restored it, and I'm not sure what what the story is now with it. Uh, it's one it's one facility, like across the hall is, or across the rotunda maybe, is the Paramount Theater. And it's right over the ocean. When I was a kid and we used to watch Ray Morgan on, who was the commentator before Vinny was the commentator. He always used to say, "Come on out to Asbury Park Convention Hall, air conditioned by the ocean breeze." I loved it.
And that reminds me, like nowadays, ticket prices are astronomical, and we just have to face the facts because the territories don't exist anymore. The major leagues used to be the best of the territories that were picked. Now, like some of the major league are fairly green, but we're paying more than ever to see them. There's less house shows than ever. Where do you see the future? Because we've seen right now that WrestleMania tickets are like stuck at 36,000. Part of that has to do with price, and part of it is the product might be going a bit stale. Do
You know
you
what
see that
really?
we're going in a down period, or do you think they're going to fix it before it gets any worse?
No, I fix it. I think they'll fix. You know what? Really got under my skin. Um, dude, this was a time when WWE was out buildings. I wish I could remember the time frame. It was after I. It was like in the 2000s. Um, and I would go to Trenton, New Jersey. I just wanted to see the show. I just wanted to see how they did things. And this happened more than once. So I go to the ticket window and I tell them I want to purchase the least expensive ticket. So I don't care how high it is. Not that it was a huge, huge building, but and so I said, okay, this is what we. So I said, okay. So I purchased my ticket. I go inside, and I'm sitting like in the like a center tier, and they're not selling any tickets for up above. Yet they advertise tickets are from this price to that price, but they don't make any of this price ticket available. I'm thinking when I go in, since the upper tier wasn't available, I'm thinking that's going to be sold out. That, like, legally, I don't know how they get away with that. Now, I don't think they need to do that these days. I think you know, they're they're selling out enough. But back then, that's the kind of practice that they would partake in, and it really pissed me off. Um, I mean, they're smart business people. They will see where the market goes. They will see what they can get away with. As long as, I mean, it is amazing how much money people must have to spend on their entertainment outlets.
$50,000 if you go to both nights at WrestleMania. Could you imagine having that much money?
No, no.
And that's just if you buy one ticket for rent row.
Yeah, I guess they need to identify their audience, who they want their audience to be, and then and to them. It may not, their audience may not be a, like a true blue wrestling fan. They, it's time to move on to, elsewhere.
Very good. Well, this has been very interesting. It's always fun talking to you. I know you got your book in the background. Do you want to give us some plugs here?
I just started a subscribers page on Facebook, and I'm doing a lot of ranting and yelling about things that piss me off, sharing memories, some of which, like we did here during this interview. I pull some stuff out and memorabilia from the past, and I'm going to be doing interviews, like these live interviews with referees and promoters and announcers and people that edit the videos. Like so we're going to get down and deep into things. So if people go to my Facebook page, which is facebook.com/ my initials GMC, the number 4 real, GMC for real, they can sign up for my subscribers page, and these are things that if you just the ordinary casual person that goes to my page, they won't be able to see this content. So I want you guys to go to Facebook, uh, GMC4 Real, and sign up on my subscribers page. I would really appreciate it.
And I put your Amazon book link in the description of this video if anyone wants to pick up the book.
But
And
if you pick it up on the subscribers page, you'll get it signed.
oh, very good. Will you do custom subscriptions too?
Sure.
Or custom autographs, I mean.
Yeah.
Very good. All right. Well, thanks a lot. Hope to have you on again. And I'll let you announce us out with whatever you want to do to end this. Thanks a lot, sir.
And I thank all the folks that watched and all the folks that have commented. It's cool. But you weren't telling the truth, because I know there is some negative shit out there, and I wanted to hear it. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. Much appreciated, Devin, Hannibal, and I will see you down the road. That's Facebook, GMC for real.